What's up, everyone? It's Wacko. Welcome you to the Season 11 Power Rankings of STS. This season we're doing Little Cup. I'm not actually joined by anyone today, but I've been using the same visual for like the last, uh, how many years? I've been using this visual since I think like Season 3, which is crazy. So, yeah, it's always going to be the first slide. Um, Moving on. Actually, before I get into power rankings, I have a couple things to say. And first thing, I don't know like anything about Little Cup. I tried playing the tier a little bit, but playing the Little Cup tier is like playing like it's like playing OU. Like you don't really get a sense of like how draft is different from like actual tiers. Cause in like the Little Cup tier, you can just slap a violet on everything. But in our format, we only allowed two violets and two berry juices per team. And while that's still like a lot because there's still other good items like Life Orb is pretty good in Little Cup. Depends on your HP stats, but either way, it kind of depends on some stuff. And overall, it's hard for me to gauge it, and most other people also don't know what is going on with Little Cup. So I think overall, these power rankings are very scuffed. And they're especially scuffed because I usually do like a little run through before, and I change some rankings of some teams I went through like earlier, but I this time I only went through like a couple of them and changed their scores before putting them in the order that I think they kind of go in. Um, but I'm also not sure entirely if I've put bias on like other people or if I just like specific mons. If I think that those mons do something, because to be honest, I don't know if all these mons actually do something. This was, I think, the only season I did not tier anything. I think the only thing I tiered were the 15 pointers, and I think I moved Yamask Galar from like 5 points to 6, and then no one even drafted it. So I that's kind of my take on things. The last thing, again, kind of making my point that this is a very scuffed season. Um, I overlooked so many things going into this that every team, I think most every team except maybe like mine, has like kind of something insane about it. And that's gonna be like Terra Shell Smashers. I completely overlooked Terra Shell Smash, especially a specific Mon, and that specific Mon will be the reason why someone gets first place in the power rankings. So yeah, without further ado, I hope everyone has fun this season. I know it's going to be very scuffed and it's going to probably feel like very unfair. I've already played my game, and while I think my opponent didn't really have anything like super broken on it that I like overlooked, um, it still felt like I definitely like mistiered things, or like I should have at least looked into the mons before doing so. But I think if we do Little Cup in the future, I'll have more of a reference on like how to tier things and such. Because last time I played Little Cup was like 4 years ago, and even back then, like it was a very scuffed run for me. I ended up losing quite a bit. So yeah, without further ado, we're gonna get into our number 16. We got Power Fable and the Joltik Jewels. And now I did say that I didn't know too much about Little Cup, but what I can say is that this is probably not the best team. Just looking at the type chart, there's so many things here that like there's so many weaknesses. Um, Literally half of the type chart is just weaknesses. Really weak to fire. You're really weak to fighting. Really weak to ground, flying, psychic. Especially with Psychic Dragon, Dark, and Ghost, there's no Pokemon that resist it, and there's only one rock resist, which is Wooper Paldia. And Wooper Paldia does not have the best like stats ever. It's like much worse than Quagsire in Little Cup. I'm actually kind of surprised it got picked up because I think it might have been overpriced. Um, but what do I know? Because I don't know anything about the tier. But I don't think those stats are even saving it. Even with like a Violet, like I don't think it's being saved. And overall, I think Power Fable, like there's just too many like ice types on here. Like, why is there 4 ice types? I can understand like Snover plus like Frigibax, or like Amora plus Frigibax, or even just like Darumaka. Like, I can understand like a combination of two of them, but why do we have 4? Why is there 4 ice types on this team? Um, and like the rest of the team is just kind of meh. Like, I think overall, like, other than the Snow Core, like, you have Yanma, you have Grievard, you have Litten, and I guess Shelder. But even when I look at Shelder, like, I think Ice type because Cloyster's an Ice type. And even that mon's like really like specially frail. Like, it can't live hits. It has 30 HP. Like, it's not living a hit. On the physical side, maybe. I suppose on the physical side it's living a hit, but like most of this team is super super frail. And not even that, but also kind of slow. Yama is pretty fast, and I think Litten hits that 17. But other than that, I think everything is like a 15 below. I want to say maybe 16, but I want to say probably 15. And I don't know. Maybe Frigibax and Darmaka hit like that 16. Um, but yeah, it's still like overall really slow. There's just too many weaknesses, and I think there's too much room for like you really have to set up, and it's so easy to just to spam like rock moves into this team. I think, although I think Grievard is gonna save this team from a lot of trouble because it does have Fluffy. And Grievard actually seems to have like decent stats for the Little Cup Mom, so I'll give it that. That's all I can say. I I'm not gonna say like this team is like super super awful. I did give this team an overall score of 53. I ended up kind of changing the way I did my power rankings because I think offense is a little bit better than defense in Gen 9, and maybe not even a lot, but like not even a little bit better, probably like a lot of bit better. Um, this is bothering me. Stretch that up a little bit. Before I go further, I made every little screenshot snippet like the same. There's 10 slots on top, which means there's, I think, 4 slots for like the moves. So on some teams, there might be like 5 Pokemon that get a specific move and they're just cut off. So I'm just letting you guys know that in case someone asks me. Also, this team has no Dark type, no Psychic type. There's just no Psychic resist. Like, I don't know, man. I'm sure he'll change his team like a little bit, but I'm not really sure what's on the board for him to pick up. Like, I think most of the good Dark types are gone and such. So yeah. Our next team is going to be Odie, and I gave this a score of 69 because it's an evil number, and this is a very evil team. And some of the evilness, like, I don't really want to spoil like what I think he is going to do, because I know exactly what he's going to do. It has something to do with Gothita. I'm not really sure why he teared it, because I believe in the past he's done tear Gothitelle, and I'm pretty sure it was so bad that he ended up dropping it, so I'm not really sure why we're trying again. We also have the Magnemite. So we have a double trapping core along with Cutiefly, which I think is okay, because I think Cutiefly... Does Cutiefly get Quiver Dance? I believe it does. I was just looking at a couple mons here. Cutiefly says it is an NFE, Quiver. It does have Quiver Dance, which is probably why it's an NFE on Showdown. So it does get Quiver Dance, but he can't tear with it, so it's still walled by Steel, and I simply don't think Magnemite and Gothita beat Steel types anyways. I could be wrong. Speed tiers are pretty decent. I think Cutiefly hits that speed tier that it needs to. I think 19. Dreepy, I think, also hits 19, and then Mincino should be able to hit that 18. So on and so forth. Trubbish is surprisingly fast for some reason. I don't really understand what's so great about Trubbish. It doesn't actually seem amazing, but it seems like it's kind of fast. Sticky Hold is nice because if you are running a Violate, like, you have Sticky Hold, but I think maybe like Aftermath could be better because I don't really know if you need a Violate on that thing constantly, but It also gets T-spikes and spikes, which is nice. Mincino's cool. It gets tidy up. Um, and with Terra, like, I believe it gets triple axle. Plus like tail slap or something like that, or bullet seed. I'm not exactly sure, but it seems decent with Terra. It doesn't seem too far off from like Chinchino. Like if you're thinking about Little Cup, and like most of the Little Cup mons are like their final evolutions with like stats that are like cut in half or something like that. Like it's pretty close to Cincino. Not too bad. Mass Shift is actually really solid. I think with Stakeout and having that 78 attack stat is really solid. It is like his best physical attacker. Most of his team is really special. Um, Actually, most of his team is just kind of fat. Um, what I'm noticing. He kind of has like fake offense, like Piplup. Piplup, I guess, suppose kind of hits hard. Cubone has like thick club. Gothita traps things, so like the 55 special attack, even though it's kind of low-ish, like it still kind of hits hard. But like a lot of the faster mons, like Mincino, Trubbish, you see like the 50s and the 40s, which isn't super high. Dreepy is kind of a low tier. It doesn't get a lot of moves. And it's also really frail, but it is fast, and it gets stuff like Curse, which is nice. I'm assuming he's going to be doing like Curse into Gothita. I won't spoil the other thing that he's going to do with it, but he's fucking evil. So, there you go. Next up, we have Logan Surgeon, who's making his debut in SDS. So, welcome, Logan. Sorry that you have third to last in PRs, but you know what? PRs don't matter. I love that this is a regen team because I'm also a degenerate regenerator. And I like overall, I like regen mons. Mienfu is the best mon in the Little Cup tier, like in like Gen 9 Little Cup. I think it was also the best in Gen 8 Little Cup, so it's like definitely up there as like one of the best mons, and it's just consistent with like fake out, knockoff, U-turn, close combat, or like high jump kick, or whatever you want to run. It's decently bulky. 45, 50, 50 isn't like the best thing ever, but having a regenerator definitely helps it, and having a Violite on it will help it a lot. I think for the most part he's going to be slapping a Violite on those top two mons. But the rest of the team kind of confuses me. I don't think I'm super impressed by everything, except maybe Carvanha. Carvanha, like, technically should probably be like where Purloin is, but this is just the order he drafted it in. Carvanha is a really solid physical attacker, but it is really frail. Like if it gets hit by anything, it just dies. Meaning if it doesn't kill something, it just dies. But I think it's fine because I think Mienfu and Marini are good at chipping things down. Even Purloin is decent at like Prankster. Is that the T-Wave mon that I see? What is that sprite? That is Purloin. I kept seeing something there, but I couldn't tell what it was. Yeah, I think Purloin's okay. It's kind of weak, but it's somewhat fast. I think the thing like I gripe with the most about this team is there's no fairy, there's no steel, and this team overall, other than having 2 speed boosters, like it isn't fast. And I think you kind of want immediate speed because I think some people can get away with pressuring Torchic and Carvanha like a little bit, or they could set up on like an obvious protect, like if Logan needs to protect in order to win, or if he needs to click Aqua Jet with Carvanha. Then that can happen, or even something like webs can go up and it kind of screws up Torchic and Carvanha a little bit. And there's quite a couple teams that have webs, and most of those teams are actually some of the better teams, so that's something to watch out for. But overall, like I don't mind this team. I think it's interesting. I'm interested to see what Gible does. I'm interested to see what like Fletchling and Solosis do. Solosis has one of the highest special attacks in Little Cup, by the way, which is cool. But I also don't really see the point in like Gumi and Mareep, to be honest. Probably could have been like Tadbulb or something, and then like something else over Gumi, but it's fine. John's up next. He definitely has like one of the weirdest looking teams I've seen. He originally had Onyx plus Shelter, and I thought that was funny because it was like, you know, the funny joke. But now it's a Lickitung and Onyx, which I think is even funnier. I still kind of wish he kept Cloyster. They could have been like a nice threesome, but instead they got crabs. Um, I'm honestly wondering like if this is intentional. Like this team, like this is the most phallic team I've ever seen. These like Onyx through Krabby. There's so many like sex jokes to be made, which is funny because they're all Gen 1 Mons. Actually, like these top six are all Gen 1. I suppose Vulpix Alola is Gen 7, but still. Um, anyways, this is the fastest team I've seen drafted, I believe. So the speed tiers are really great. Abra, Diglett hit that 19, I believe. Or did they hit 18? I think they hit 19. Yeah, because I think Ponyta hits 19. I think Talo might be in 18, and Onyx is actually surprisingly fast. And I also think in Little Cup that Onyx having 45 attack isn't awful. It's still not great, but it has 160 defense, which is nice. And it has Rock Head. Does it get Head Smash? I don't think so. I don't know if Onyx has any purpose for Rock Head. Maybe. Lickitung is actually solid too. I think in Little Cup, Lickitung might be the best bulky normal other than like maybe Munchlax. But considering Lickitung is like a 3-point mon in like a regular draft, I think it's a solid pickup. And it made it all the way till Grace, which is nice. Talo has 30 base special attack, but I don't know if it is good at using Boom Burst in this tier. It might be a Gutsmon. It might even just be really good with like Return plus like Brave Bird, for all I know, which I don't know. Bramblett actually seems like an okay pickup. I'm not sure if wind moves are very common in the tier because in like regular mode, and like regular draft, a lot of the high tiers are flying types with like Hurricane, which you really just don't have that in Little Cup. So I'm not exactly sure if Bramblin is going to be doing a lot in Little Cup. It seems a little bit frail. Seems like it might be a little bit too slow for how frail it is, but it does look like it hits kind of hard. Wind Rider's still a decent ability. Is it the same thing? Like if Noibat sets up Tailwind, if you switch in Bramblin, like does it get the boost? Or am I thinking of something else? I think it's Wind Rider. But yeah, I think Noibat is just kind of a pointless mon on this team. I think you should just replace Noibat because you have Talos, you're flying. I suppose you could grab like a different flying type that does something with it. I think the reason why Noibat is tiered higher is because it's a dragon type, but I just don't think it's good. I just don't think it's doing anything, honestly. So that gave it a score of 72, but oh, and also Vulpix is like one of the only Veil setters in Little Cup. So we've seen both of the Veil setters already. I think that's all we have for Veil. Anyways, next up we have Heister with a score of 73. He ended up taking the Trapinch that I dropped like immediately, which I thought was pretty good. Something I've noticed about this team is it's really slow, and some of the low tiers just don't seem great. I think Togepi has some potential, but I was looking at its stats and it just doesn't look great. Like it seems like a support mon, but I'm not exactly sure what it does. Bounsweet is just god awful. I think even if I put Steenie in Little Cup, like I think even Steenie is just awful. Kricketot is really bad. It was a 1-pointer mon, but I will say I used it in a speed tour. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and it was actually really solid. It's super annoying with like lunge, skitter smack, string shot plus like endeavor. And if it's holding a focus sash, like it gets off some of those moves like really easily. I think Kricketot has a lot of room to actually be kind of obnoxious, despite having low stats. But it's just a niche that I found with it. I don't really think Bounsweet does anything though. Natu's actually surprisingly solid. I didn't expect Natu to be like pretty close to Xatu in terms of stats. Like it has that 70s speed, 70 special attack, whereas I think Natu has like 95s. So 70 is not too far off, and it's decently bulky. Surprisingly, like somewhat of a high attack stat. So if there's like a physical move you could run on it, that seems solid. Magic bounce is nice. I think I might have made Natu like one of my Terras if I were Heister instead of like Aeron. I think Aeron's funny, but I guess maybe Aeron's just there to be like a hard like Terra Steel. Aeron actually seems like okay. I think it gets like a Totemized too. 70 attack isn't that bad. Ammonite's a Shell Smasher. It's one of the slower Shell Smashers, I think, but it's fast enough where once it gets off a Shell Smash, then it's good. And I suppose you actually have Togepi, Natu, and like Bounce Suite supporting it with screens. I guess if you're gonna do something with Bounce Suite, it might as well just be a screen setter and then like die, because it doesn't have anything else going for it. And I think overall, like these top three are also really good. Meowth doesn't really have impressive stats, but the way damage scales in Little Cup is kind of insane. So Technician Fake Out hits really hard. I think in general, just Meowth just hits really hard, like surprisingly, and it's surprisingly consistent for what it does. And overall, I think having priority, good stab priority with Technician is just really good in Little Cup. Scraggy's one of the best mons in terms of stats. Like, it's not even that far off from Scrafty. It has like 10 less speed. It has a lot less defense, but it has like really similar HP and like a surprisingly high attack stat for a Little Cup mon. Scraggy's really good. I think Chinchou is, I think, the best pivot in Little Cup. I tried picking that up myself, but I was a little bit too late on it. But yeah. And also a good Trapinch pickup. I don't even think Trapinch is necessary on this team, but I think if it wants to just trap like a fairy for Scraggy, then that's good. Yeah. Next up, we have a shopping cart with a score of 75. Pretty similar, like Meowth into the Aipom here. Aipom doesn't have Technician, which I thought it did have Technician, but I guess maybe it's Runaway instead. But it still has Skill Link. And for some reason, I guess Aipom doesn't have Tail Slap and Paldea, so we had to specify that it was Nat Dex and not Paldea Dex, because Aipom is just absolute garbage in Paldea, apparently. But yeah, it's a decent mon with pivoting. Again, it's like one of those mons that used to be fully evolved. I don't know how the fuck Game Freak thought those stats were fully evolved. 85 is your highest stat, is fully evolved apparently. But it certainly was. But it's pretty good. It has a good speed tier. The rest of his team is a little bit slow, but I think Cottonee still hits 17 if I'm not mistaken. And I will check the speed tiers really quick. 17, yeah, Cottonee still hits 17. Which is nice, and I think, yeah, Houndour also hits 17. I think if there's a speed tier, you have to hit, like, you want something that hits that 19, but then you also need things that hit that 17, because I think 17 seems like that sweet spot in Little Cup that, like, it seems like the new 100 base speed when you hit 17 in Little Cup, which not a lot of mons hit, but a lot of good mons hit it, which is nice. Houndour is also very solid. 80 special attack is really surprising to me, but it's actually surprisingly frail, which is okay. I think if it's hitting hard with Terra, then it's probably pretty good. It was a mon that I considered picking up too. And it has Flash Fire, which is nice because you got things like Varoom and like Cottonee that are probably going to bait in fire hits. Although we have Heat Proof and Thick Fat on Spheal and Poltergeist, so maybe we're not baiting in too many fire moves. But in case we are, yeah. We also have 3 Rapid Spinners, which is a little bit over the top. I don't think we need 3 Rapid Spinners, but I guess that's what we have. And 2 Defoggers. If I had any gripes with this team, though, I think we don't really need Sfeel plus Quaxley. I think you could have just grabbed a better water type for that price, for those prices, or even like Kabuto. Have I said Kabutops? I meant to say Kabuto, because Kabuto doesn't have Shell Smash. It's just kind of like a middling speed mon with like somewhat okay stats, decently high attack, decently high defense, but it has low HP. It has low Spidef. Um, I think it could be okay though. I used Terra Kabutops in a league, and I just kind of thought it was okay. I think for the most part you're gonna be using Houndour, and I think maybe you should just replace your water types for a better one. Like I think Corpfish fits pretty well. It has good priority as well. So that's maybe what I'd do, but it's your team though, and I like a lot of the picks here. Next up we have Wisdom, and we got our mascot pick here with Rufflet, so that's some extra points there. Um, Before I say anything though, Wisdom, what the fuck is your obsession with Makuhita and like Hariyama and Iron Hands? Like, I feel like he's trying to fit those fighting types with like massive HP stats on all of his teams. I don't know what the fuck is with him though. Like, I don't think Makuhita's not very good, but Pop Off King. Also, a lot of single type mons on this team. Our only dual types are Ferroseed and Rufflet, which is interesting. Everything else is a single type, which I think makes it easier to prep with, because you don't have a lot of like if you combine Shellos and Drillbur, like now you're not resisting water, um, stuff like that, which I guess is just something that's bothered me about like some dual types, but it's whatever. Um, these mons are really interesting. I think Ferrosuit Shellos are just a very good like a Violite core. Elekid's top end speed with decently high special attack and attack. You can run it both ways. Its defenses aren't awful. They kind of are, but I think it lives a hit. That kind of deal. Rufflet's a decent scarfer, but I think Rufflet's like the best scarf mon in Little Cup, and it just kind of hits super hard with like Brave Bird. Um, I think it runs Hustle. Um, so that's something you have to do, but I think he just wanted it as like a mascot pick, and I respect it. Drillbur's decent with like rapid spin, sword stance. Like it just does like the Excadrill things, or like the Sandshrew things, but I think it does them a little bit better because it's a little bit faster and about as strong, anyways. Meowtholola's pretty decent with like Technician, Fake Out, plus like Bite flinches, and it's fast. It also has like Rattled. I don't think you're really gonna be running Rattled on it because you're gonna die till you turn. But I used Alolan Meowth in like some Nuzlocke recently, and I was surprised by how useful it was. I just kind of assumed that Meowth and Persian would suck ass, but they're not that bad. They are bad, but not that bad. Gulpin's a good pickup as well, and I like the Yamask pickup. He definitely could have combined Yamask and Drillbur into like Yamask Galar or something like that. He definitely could have combined some mons. I think like Stunky isn't Stunk. No, Stunky's not on the board. It was for like the longest time though. I was surprised by how long Stunky was on the board. I honestly think he should have made Meowth and Gulpin Stunky instead. But now the time is a little bit too late now, which is whatever. Also, Cleffa's ass. That's all I'm going to say about it. Next up, we have a Bashta 12. I think we're at our number 9 spot. So after this, we're going to be at our halfway point. Bashta's team has a lot of interesting mons. This is what I'll be facing next week, and I'm not super happy about having to face it because I think he has some really good like hidden tech mons here. Drifloon has really good stats in Little Cup. It's still really fast. It has a lot of HP, and its special attack is surprisingly high. Its defenses are low, but again, having high HP kind of makes up for it. Diglett's always annoying because it's trapping things always. It can be surprisingly strong because when it traps something, you can just kind of run Choice Band on it and click a button. It outspeeds everything in the tier other than like Voltorb. I think it might be speed tying like most of those like base 20s. Or I think it hits 20 is what I'm trying to say. Um, Skidoo has decent stats in Little Cup, as does Gogoat, but Gogoat's stat distribution just kind of sucks, but Skidoo's stat distribution makes a little bit more sense to me. It's kind of still a little bit middling, but I think it's bulky enough to do something. And it has decent coverage. Um, a Farfetch'd Galar is a really solid mon with Scrappy. You can always just click close combat and not have to worry about something switching in on it. It's a little bit slow and a little bit frail, but I think it's a perfect like berry juice mon. Um, it has above 50 in all its defensive stats and has 95 attack, 55 speed. It's really good. Um, Dupiter is an annoying. It has sticky web. Um, 27 speed isn't great, but it's also like it can kind of speed creep some things. Um, just so you can ensure sticky web gets up. But I think if you're using it for sticky web, it's probably only going to get up a sticky web. But I think water bubble is also good on it. It has 40 in its attack and special attack, so it can attack from either side, which is cool. Inkay, I think, is one of the coolest Terra Captains I've seen so far, because it's not just a fucking shell smasher. It's pretty close. Contrary plus Terra Blast or Superpower is really close. But I think with Inkay, you really don't want to do the thing that like Snivy does with Terra Stellar, because I think Psychic Dark is just such an awful typing defensively. It's just gonna die to U-turn. I think Inkay's stats are really bad. Um, yeah, I'm looking at stats and it really doesn't have impressive stats at all. It just kind of dies. Um, and it doesn't hit hard like initially. I guess it could. 54 isn't awful, but I really don't think Inkay is like amazing. But it's interesting. It also has Topsy Turvy, which I think could be like an interesting tool to like stop a setup sweeper if you're like a Sash Inkay. I am starting to lose my voice. So I'm gonna probably pick up the speed a little bit here. I'm at 30 minutes. Okay. Next up we have my team. I'm pretty used to seeing my team, and I initially rated it a little bit lower, but I think I overall have a lot of decent tools that other teams don't seem to have, and I think all of my mons are good. I'm a little bit worried about my Skrelp pick because I think Skrelp wants to run like a Violate, but most of my other mons are trying to run a Violate before I do that on Skrelp. I'm always putting a Violate on like Vullaby. I think Vullaby could do other things. I guess it just kind of depends what I need to use a Vullaby for. But Vullaby is one of the mons I unbanned just to kind of test it in the Little Cup format, and I don't think it's going to be broken, but I definitely think it's one of the better mons in the format. It's really consistent. Weak Armor is actually really strong on it because Vullaby it's kind of like Swoobat. I haven't talked about Swoobat yet. But its offenses are really close to Mandibuzz. Vullaby's offensive sets are really close to Mandibuzz, so it's almost like having a Mandibuzz in the tier. 370 BST is pretty solid. Ponyta also has the highest base stat total in Little Cup. So I have that. I have that 90 base speed plus 85 attack. 65 special attack isn't awful either because it has like Calm Mind sets. Then I have something like Sandshrew, which can run like agility or spin, plus having 75 attack, 85 defense. Pumpkaboo Large is the one I went with. It was just so I could fit Blitzel on the team, but it has Shadow Sneak. It has Trick. It even has like fire coverage. And I think in Little Cup, its special offense is a little bit better than what Gourgeist would have been. Because Gourgeist, I think, is kind of impossible to use as a special attacker, but 44 is actually okay. Because a lot of the other teams I looked at so far, like, are working with like 40s in their offenses. Litleo actually has a surprisingly high base stat total in Little Cup. 369 is pretty solid. Like, it's higher than, I think that's higher than Apom. It's really fast. It has a lot of special attack. It has above 50 in its defenses, and it has 50 attack, which isn't great, but it's usable. It has really strong moves like Double Edge Flare Blitz, excuse me, along with like Trailblaze and Moxie, so it can kind of boost sweep. Um, Lileep, I think, is a really solid, underrated Terra Captain. I think it beats all the Shell Smashers because if you haven't noticed yet, most of the Shell Smashers we've covered are water types, and having Storm Drain is really solid. Now, I did get its abilities mixed up. I thought Suction Cups was Sticky Hold for the longest time, so it can get knocked off. But I think my biggest gripe with this team, speaking of a Violet, is like a lot of this team wants to be running a Violet. I think Vullaby wants it. I think Sandshrew and Pumpkaboo want it. I think Skrelp wants it. And I think Lileep want it. Um, I think Lileep has to have a Violet because I think having Recover, like Lileep is a little bit more of a Stallmon, which I think it doesn't really work too well on this team. I might replace Lileep, but this team is a little bit faster paced than Stall, I think. So we'll see how that works. The flow doesn't seem like super great here. And its support options aren't great. I think Tinkatink is a decent support mon. Its stats aren't amazing, but its typing is. And it has Pickpocket. So you have to be careful about like Air Balloon, Pickpocket, stealing like a Violates. Because I think when you're looking at other people's teams, it's really easy to see what's going to be running like a Violate or like Berry Juice. And it's really easy to be able to just kind of steal them and get that interaction to work. Blitzel as a 5-point mon is also solid. It hits that 18 base speed tier, and its offenses aren't horrible. It just kind of doesn't have a good move pool. It doesn't have high horsepower or overheat like Zebstrika does. So it's kind of just a bad version of Zebstrika. I think Zebstrika is actually solid too in like regular format now. I think it's not seen, but we're not talking about regular format. Anything else I haven't said about this team? Sandshrew solid. It has spin. I think I've talked about everything. Next up, we have the Danley. The Danley only has Staryu as a rapid spinner, but I think it's the best spinner in the format. Like, I think Staryu, like, with its tiering, you'd think it would be more like an offensive mon, but I kind of think it's an offensive mon that has utility, that it just kind of runs. Like, I think most Staryus are going to be running Flip Turn plus Rapid Spin. And the nice thing about the Danley's team is, even though it doesn't have a poison type, having Staryu is your spinner is solid because it has natural cure, so it can spin and then just kind of flip turn out and then heal that poison off, which I think is great. And Tyron is a really solid setup sweeper. I think it might be like the best Dragon Dancer in Little Cup. It has base 89 attack with Strong Jaw. I think it gets like Crunch and shit like that. And probably like the elemental things if I had to guess. 77 defense is really good. 45 Spit F isn't bad, paired with like 58 HP. Its defensive typing isn't great, but I think its stats overall kind of hold it up. Mudbray, I was telling Odie this, but Mudbray actually feels like it could kind of pass as a fully evolved mon. It's much better than some of the fully evolved mons in Gen 2. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's so much better than like Ledian and like Ariados and like a lot of other Gen 2 mons, which isn't saying too much. I think it's a lot better than some Gen 1 and Gen 3 fully evolved mons, maybe even the Gen 4 mon. It has 100 base attack, 70 HP, 70 defense with stamina. 55 Spit F isn't bad. And it's a little bit faster than Mudsdale, which is interesting. But it has stamina, which is like the main thing with it, plus a lot of coverage. Stealth Rock Roar. Voltorb, I think, is one of the better Terra Captains in the format. It's a little teeny bit weak, but I think overall it might be better than Electrode Hisui as a Terra Cap. This thing probably should have been Terra Banned, which is just another one of my oversights. I might even go back through and like find a little oversight about like every little team. I think the starter Pokemon Charmander is okay. I think most of the starter Pokemon, like their stats are a little bit too, like they don't really have an identity in a lot of instances, and most of them can't really use their hidden abilities to their full extent. Like Solar Power Charmander doesn't really make sense to use. Um, but yeah, Doduo is really solid. It has 85 attack, 75 speed, so it's really solid. I like the Danley speed tiers. Um, doesn't have the best pivoting, but it's fine. Some other teams I think don't even have pivoting at all. But yeah, next up we have Fletch. We actually have a two-way tie, but I'm gonna cover Fletch first. Fletch again drafted a team that's very like middle down the road, but it kind of worked for him in this instance because I think a lot of the Mons and Little Cup from like 5 points to 15 points are very, very, very much usable. But it's anything below 5 points seem unusable. So a lot of the Mons you see here are like 10 or 11 points. And then you have Ralts at the bottom because Ralts is fucking unusable. I don't know why Ralts is here. I suppose trace shenanigans could work or like screens or something, but I think Ralts is just god awful. It has 198 base stat total. That's awful. But then you have a lot of hard hitters, like Geodude is a hard hitter. Um, Joltik is actually surprisingly strong and annoying. Bug Electric is hard to switch in on. Darumaka has Hustle with 90 attack, which is much better than like fully evolved mons. Like Raticate, I think is lower than 90 if I'm not mistaken. Turtwig is the Terra Shell Smasher of the team, which is nice. It's bulky. It's fast enough where +2 will be outspeeding things that aren't scarfed. Anorith is actually really fast. Base 75 speed. It is his fastest mon, but it hits base 18, which I think is okay. I think Fletch maybe wants like a base like 83 or higher, because I think 83 or higher hits that 19, which is what Magby hits, I believe. Um, but it's fine. Shroodle has Prankster, which is alright. And I think Frillish is a really good mon. It's again, base 40 speed isn't great, but I think you could maybe slap a Scarf on it, and you could do like Scarf Terra Water Spouts, or you could just use it as like a bulky mon. Water Ghost is kind of hard to deal with. It's kind of weak to knock off, but um, yeah, that's kind of one thing is if you're not using Turtwig as a Shell Smasher, like you're always slapping a Violate on your top two. Um, Maybe Axew could use like I think Axew seems like a berry juice mon to me. I think Anorith kind of does too. But they're pretty solid. Like he found some decent use in some of these picks. I think overall, I might drop Geodude for like Yamask Galar or like some other ground type that isn't super weak to like water and grass. Maybe. I think Geodude's fine, but I think for like the sake of like having better defenses, maybe, and maybe you could upgrade Ralts to like a better fairy, even if it was like Milcery, because I don't think anyone picked up Milcery. So a solid team. Definitely not going to acknowledge the fact that there's a mon between Anorith and Darumaka. I just don't see the point in it being there when you have Grimer. I get that it has Prankster though, but I don't really. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good mon. Anyway, next up we have Sacred Ash, who I think drafted. Like, this is the most frail team I've ever seen Sacred Ash draft. This is one of the more frail teams that I've seen overall. Like, it has some bulk. You have 100 defense on Honedge, and I think you have 79 special defense on Flabebe. Flabebe is pretty decent. Um, Ghastly's fast with a lot of special attack, but it's really frail. It's gonna die to like all the Sucker Punch mons, or like probably even like Ice Shard. Aqua Jet is gonna kind of screw it over. But then you got stuff like Mankey. Mankey is also really frail, huh? But it has good attack and good speed. Helioptile is really frail. Sandile's actually really like very, very frail. It has Intimidate. He has two Intimidators, but I don't think they're like helping too much with the defense. Surprisingly, they seem a little bit too frail. Squirtle is pretty bulky, but you're probably going to be using it for Terra Shell Smash, which means his kind of like try to kill it. I think Squirrel's the probably like the second best Shell Smasher that was drafted. So that'll probably win games on its own. I think again it was just a big oversight for me. I definitely should have banned Shell Smash, but I was just kind of too stupid to do that. Anything else? What do I think about Execute? Let me look at its stats. 60, 80, 45 in defenses, 60 speed. That's not bad. Um, could maybe run. I'm kind of seeing like a manual Sun angle on this team. Maybe something like Hoot can do that, or just like manual Sun on one of these, because Helioptile also gets solar power, which I think is interesting. And Helioptile is like a little bit faster than most Mons in Little Cup, so you could maybe do something. I've used Honajin Flabebe in Little Cup before. I think they're pretty solid. That's kind of all I have to say about Sacred Ash. This is just a really solid team. This is the tie with Fletch, by the way. Next up, we have Luca. And I think I made a mistake. I accidentally helped him draft like one of the best teams that was drafted. It has no steel type, but I don't think he needs one. I think Krogunk is a decent like Tear Steel Mon, or even like Sinistea. Oh yeah, Sinistea is also one of the better Shell Smash Tears that was drafted. It was one that I considered picking up as well, but I wasn't sure how to fit it. It has 74 special attack, is really high, and its defenses aren't awful. It might be a little bit hard to set up with, especially because weak armor will make it more susceptible to like priority. But I think we had the best Mon drafted in the format. We have Porygon, and I think Porygon is the best Mon in Little Cup. Probably should have been banned because I think agility plus download will just sweep people. And now Porygon's like the only reason why this team actually reached top 4, because these speed tiers are really awful. Zoroa should not be your fastest Mon, but I think it's fine because I think what does Zoroa hit, like 16? What did Volbee's 60? Oh, Volbee's just 60. I was trying to compare it to Volbee because I know Volbee hits 16. Maybe Zoro hits 17. Oh my gosh, I just spoiled everything. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting a little bit confused here. Zoro does hit 17. Okay, so it's not awful, but the rest of the team is a little bit slow. I think Growlithe, for the most part, is going to be running Choice Scarf, though. Probably one of the best Scarfers in the format, but you also have, like, Ice Shard, and you have Teleport, Regenerator, Slowpoke to get in Growlithe plus Porygon, which is just crazy, and you have Setup Dynasty, and you have Ice Shard, Swinub, which is solid. Plus Illusion Zoroa will just be annoying. So I think overall, I gave this an 86, but I think this has some of the worst speed. We'll see though. I think this was one of my hot takes. Like, I just want to put it here. But the top 3 teams are just definitely a lot better, which you've already seen, because I've already spoiled the top 3 on accident. Next up, we have Chickadee, who has a really good team. We have the fastest Mon in the format, Voltorb, which I guess speed ties like 4 of the other fastest Mons in the format. Pawniard is really good. It's surprisingly consistent because it's actually fast enough in Little Cup where it doesn't actually need to rely on like Sucker Punch shenanigans. It'll probably have Sucker Punch on some of its sets, but it's not going to be like a, damn, do I click Sucker Punch or do I click Kowtow like you do with Bisharp? You can just kind of click buttons and not have to worry too much about it. It might kind of lack coverage though, but I think it might get like low kick or something, which is fine. Zora Hisui is, I think, one of the easiest pairings I've ever seen with it. Because Pawniard's always going to be inviting fighting type moves. Zoroa can wall them, and I think 35, 40, 40 is not frail enough to just kind of die to like random coverage moves. It'll probably take like 70% from like a coverage move, but it's not that bad. Wingull is actually fast. I was kind of surprised that Wingull is kind of like a fast special attacker, whereas Pelipper is so much slower and like more bulky. I kind of like when they do that with Mons, where the pre-evolutions are built differently. Its abilities are kind of bad though. I don't really see the point in like running any of its abilities. It's probably just gonna be running Kenai for the most part. Toedscrew's solid. It has good special defense. It has Spore, Rapid Spin. Really don't like Mycelium Mite, but like it keeps it balanced in the meta, I think. Salandit's really solid. It's definitely like I think if you compared it to like Salazzle in like a normal format, I think Salandit's a lot better than Salazzle. It's just um, it might be a little bit slower than Salazzle would have been in Little Cup, but its special attack is certainly I think a lot better. Actually, its stats are very similar, but I think having 71 special attack means a little bit more than like that 77 speed. And I think 77 speed still hits what was Blitzel? Blitzel's 70. Okay, so Salandit hits 18. That's really solid. Zora, I believe, also might hit 18. If it doesn't, it hits 17 for sure. The rest of the team is just really solid, really decently fast. Snubbles, Intimidate is pretty nasty. Now we're going to get into the top two teams. We got the Undella Wishful Umbreons, coached by Log. This is, I think, one of my favorite teams drafted. Simply because I've used Grookey plus Woobat before. And I love them. I absolutely love those two. Woobat's a little bit hard to use, but it has really solid stats. Comparing it to Swoobat, its offenses really aren't that much lower than Swoobat. Even its defenses aren't that much lower than Swoobat, so it's actually really solid. And it's fast. I think it has the same HP stat as Swoobat, which is really silly. But the thing that makes Woobat really good is because it's so close to Swoobat in its stats that it's actually one of the higher end LC mons that also has Simple, which you pair with Grassy Seed and Calm Mind, you get pretty much a defensive double Omni boost with 2 special attack. The only thing it can't do is boost speed. Maybe it gets agility, but I don't think so. But it only hits that 17. So if you have anything faster than Woobat, like it's just gonna die. But any teams that are slower than Woobat, like Luca's team, I think Woobat is just instantly sweeping them. Especially with Terra. Sandygast is also a decent Terra. I loved seeing a special ground type on a team with the grassy terrain. Magby hits extraordinary. Like these top 4 hit extraordinarily hard, as well as Sandshrew. They hit hard. Tarantula is also not like awful. I think in my notes I said it was kind of awful, but I also kind of got smacked by it earlier. Like it was doing so much damage to my Mons, even though it was like super effective. But it did more than I think it should have. But it's like overall, it's like a decent sash, get up sticky webs mon. That's kind of the end of it, and then it kind of dies. But I love this team. I don't really have much else to say about it though, other than it's really hard to prep for, because there's a lot of synergies, and a lot of defensive synergies as well. Like Munchlax, Sandygast work really well together. Sandshrew. It has not the best typing, but it's decent. So does Tentacool. And then you also have Pancham, which is surprisingly bulky. Certainly not least, but also first place we have Honeybunny, which I don't have a comment on. So I'll make my comment. My comment will be Clamperl. That is all. Clamperl is my biggest oversight in Little Cup, I think, of all time. This thing I allowed to Terra. I allowed it to run Deep Sea Tooth and Deep Sea Scale. I allowed it to run Shell Smash. And all those combined made it the best mon in the format for only 8 points when it should have been banned. Even if it was allowed to run like Deep Sea Tooth, it definitely should have at least been like 12 points. But the fact that I allowed it to do all these things for 8 points is insane. And on top of that, Ani Bunny has just some of the best mons in the format overall. I think everything except Venonat is broken as fuck. Swirlix is an unburdened mon with Calm Mind. Ponyta, again, highest base stat total in Little Cup with the second fastest speed tier, with Flame Charge, decent bulk, and like one of the highest attack stats, and one of the most, and also one of the best offensive move pools in Little Cup because they gave it high horsepower, plus like Flare Blitz and like, I think all you need is Flare Blitz plus high horsepower. Timber is a solid mon with guts. You don't want to burn it. Don't want to paralyze it or anything. Drain Punch, Knockoff, Mach Punch, Bulk Up, Clamperl, Shell Smash, Stunky, really solid. It's not the bulkiest mon in the world, but it can run bulky sets with like Knockoff, Gunk Shot, and it's really strong because of it. Again, not the best like defensive stats in the world, but it's also really fast. Like I don't know why Stunky is so fast. It's only like 10 speed slower than Skuntank. I think that's stupid. And Poison Dark is the best typing, like a top 3 typing of all time. Snivy, again, really good Terror Captain with Contrary Leaf Storm. Its only problem is I think it's a little bit slow, and I think he's going to have no reason to really run Snivy over Clamperl. But he has something against the Sticky Web teams, and I think some of the Sticky Web teams are the stronger teams in Little Cup. Or at least some of the scariest teams to face. I think I might be underrating Sticky Web because I think Abasha has Dewpider. Like this could be one of the better teams. Like this team doesn't even have Shell Smash or Sticky Web. It was gonna have both, but it's fine. Archen is really strong. 112 attack with 70 speed. I think it's the highest attack stat in Little Cup. I could be mistaken, and it also has a really high special attack stat with I think the second or like the third highest base stat total in Little Cup. None of his mons have below 400 or below 300, which is funny as well. Some of them get close, like we have two 305s and a 308. Venonat's not awful. I don't really know why Venonat's on the team. The biggest problem with this team, I think, is just not having a ground type, maybe. Or just not having, like, the best electric resist. We have Snivy, but I think that's the purpose of, like, Clamperl and Snivy can, like, tear ground. No Steel, I think, is fine. This is just one of the scariest teams I've seen. And my only comment other than that is Clamperl. And that is it. Here's your final rankings. Pretty close within like the top like 12. I mean, I think it's very clear that Uni and Log had like the best teams. And then like Chicken Luca had really solid teams with some more like minor to major-ish flaws. Uni Bunny does have some major flaws in his team, but I don't think it's gonna matter. Because there's just too many fucking tools here, and like if I were to re-tier things after like seeing all the texts that were drafted, if I were to like re-tier things, I think he would have drafted the most points, or he would have had like the most point value, I think. Especially in Little Cup, because I think you're gonna be using like the same 6 mons. Like some of these teams, like Luca's not gonna use Reller. Sacred Ash probably won't use Hoot Hoot. Fletch won't use Ralts. The Danley might not use like Charmander. I don't know. I don't really see. Like these two teams, I think all the mons will get used. I used Blitzel in week 1, That was the mon I didn't think I'd be using. Abasho's not gonna use Azurill. Wisdom won't use Cleffa. Shopping cart won't use. Well, maybe he'll use Feel. He shouldn't, but he probably will. Heiser shouldn't use Bounsweet or Kricketot. John should not use Noibat. Logan should not use Mareep or Gumi. Odie shouldn't use Dreepy. Power Fable shouldn't use Wooper, I think. Um, I mean, most of those mons kind of have like a purpose, but I think like Uni has 7 mons, even like Venonat being his worst mon, like it still kind of has a use, I think. So, yeah. Tinted Lens plus 55 attack isn't bad. And yeah, um, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys for week 1 next week. Bye.